Hello, everybody, and welcome to the lesson. This is the last lesson before the Congress, because next week the guys from Toronto, actually from everywhere, the men and the women from the various groups will already be on their way to St. Louis in preparation, get things set up for everybody so that we can welcome you and the right way, and to spend some wonderful time together. So next week there won't be a lesson on Wednesday. There will be no, there won't be one on Sunday either, this coming Sunday, because no, wait a minute, I'm getting all confused. This is the last Wednesday lesson. That's right. There is one on Sunday, but there isn't a Wednesday lesson next week. Okay. This is a good night for confusion. I know that the clocks changed here, but they changed 2 weeks ago for a lot of the Spanish speakers, and on Sunday I went every place an hour early. You know, everything was like this the whole week. Tonight we're going to look at a few things. The articles that we're going to look at are two articles by Rabash. These articles that we study from Rabash are articles that he wrote specifically on the group as a Kabbalistic tool. And he wrote it in a kind of very direct and simple language. There are references, of course, to other texts, to the work of his father, and to other Kabbalistic texts, but he puts it in such a way that it's possible for us to get it simply, to sort of take it in, mull it around, and see how it actually works for us in a way that we can really understand on our level. These articles came into being because at first, when Rav Lightman started learning with Rabash, the only people who were learning with him were old men. It was a different period of time. It was a time when Kabbalah was still hidden, because of course it wasn't until 1995 that it really opened up. But Rav was sort of instrumental in helping Rabash refocus the type of writing and teaching that he did. As a matter of fact, he didn't write before he took on Rav as his personal assistant and primary student. The reason that this happened was because Rav went and brought a bunch of young guys from Tel Aviv to come and study with Rabash. And Rabash was very interested and excited about the fact that something had changed, that there were young people, some of them just completely secular, who wanted to come and learn the wisdom. And at first Rabash said, okay, well, you teach them. Now, this is at a point where Rav, who was always a real activist, I mean, he had only been studying with Rabash a relatively short period of time, and Rabash said, you teach them. So he said, but what am I going to teach them? Why don't you just write something, maybe a page or something, so that I know what I can begin speaking to them about? And so that started a whole tradition where Rabash began the writing that he did by writing articles specifically for how these people, who are very much like us, can begin to enter all of the principles and the study really all at once through connecting in a group. Rabash, of course, went on to, he wrote a lot more things, different sorts of articles and so on, that were compiled into Steps of the Ladder, Shlavei Salam, and also there's a broader text. There are 3 volumes of this text that just came out in the last couple of months of his writings. They were never compiled into a collection before. But we're at a point, and as in our study and before the Congress, where this is really a good place for us to start looking. The 2 articles that we're going to look at tonight are on the calendar page, the lesson calendar. And the first one that we're going to look at is the importance of the association, number 1. Also, I know that there were a lot of questions that came up after the mini-Congress about the nature of the Congress, about and about women's role and so on. And also this week we put up the women's book on women in Kabbalah, and we wanted to do this. We were hoping to get it up a little earlier as help, preparation for the Congress. Not so much what to expect geographically about where women are and where men are and so on, but to clarify where the focal point, the power of a woman's work, where that should occur, where her corrections are, and how she can work on it. Because there's the way that we work together is like the way a body works together. You don't have any two organs doing the same job. You have the work towards unity, the nature of the work in the system of Adam Rishon that's done by the men in preparation to enter spirituality and on corrections, and you have the work of the women. This is all part of one being, and it's like parts of a body. If you show me a body that has two organs that do exactly the same function, and I'll show you a body that's dead. So the whole point of getting this booklet out, and of the questions that have arisen, and the strength of the resistance to these things, which is really very good, is so that people will start looking at and feeling where their correction actually lies. So as we go through these articles on group, it will be appropriate to ask questions specifically on the way in which Rabash is speaking about this, and also if you want, but don't force yourself into it, only if it exists for you as a real need. You can also ask about how this works, how women do this correction, and how they relate to the whole thing. Okay? We already have a question from Simone in Australia, and she says, so this method is for secular people who are unable to achieve a sense of godliness from the Torah? No. It was just that there were no people who were attracted to the real Kabbalah other than those who had grown up inside a religious tradition. And even those, there were very, very few. But the fact that the Kabbalah is for everybody, and that it had been like that since the time of the Ari, the excitement was really in the fact that we were approaching the time of 1998. We're getting closer to it at this point. It was in the 80s. And already there was the indication that this was so, and that the need would be there in humanity as a whole, and that it would be accessible to people because of their desire. So let's start with the importance of the association. How the members of the association should relate to each other, as a question. It is clear that if a person sees his associate as an inferior to whom he condescends to instruct in improvement of character, the relationship will not be one of friends, but that of teacher and student. Or conversely, he will see an associate as a superior from whom he stands to learn good character qualities, and in whom he will therefore see a rabbi, and not an equal and a friend. Rabbi meaning teacher, a great one. A person can only accept, a person can only accept an equal as a friend. A person can only accept an equal as a friend. The word friend implies similar situation. This is intellectually obvious. If their views are similar, they will decide to associate. Then they will set out to accomplish their common purpose for their common profit. For example, two partners of identical views working on a project together in order to bring about some profit will feel themselves of equal power. However, as soon as one partner feels himself more capable than the other, he will not accept the other as an equal partner, but he will form a partnership according to percentages in proportion to their respective contributions, 25%, 33%, etc. Then we can certainly not call the partnership equal. Questions? Madian from Spain. Traditionally, only men used to study Kabbalah, and women were not part of any group. How did the group make up for that lack then? Then, well, yes, women were not part of a study group in Kabbalah. They were related to it in the past through their family associations with the members of the group. A Kabbalist would teach his wife. As a matter of fact, Rabash had lessons. He met with the women once a week. He was very interested in knowing what their needs were and teaching them according to what they wanted to know. And Rav talks about how Rav's wife used to study with Rabash as well. But it was an informal thing. And if we go back a long time prior to that, the women really, it was a different time, and it was not clarified as to how women could be brought fully enter it, because it was also not the time when men and women could combine their forces in a kind of a different but equal way towards unity. And really what's happening in B'nai Baruch is the first true integration of this. And it's not because of any sort of... It's not because Rav decided to do this. It has to do with the necessity of the time and the readiness of humanity. So the forms of the past had to do with family, whereas now they have to do with family, but also with connection to the group as a whole through forming a partnership, as he says here, a kind of an equal partnership based on the equality of the force with which the male and the female work on the goal. Now, that doesn't change the fact that the roles of the two partners are different, but the power and the importance of them are equal. So we're really at a point of revealing a new way, a new way of how women work in this, and we're in a process of looking into the sources to find advice from Bala Salam on how and understanding that and how we can arrange this sort of thing. And so far, I mean, we don't go too fast because we also know that we have to use this correctly, and it's a balancing act. But one thing we do know is that unity is an issue for both men and women, not in how they do it, but in the fact that they must be unified. Where men must be unified in this, in the things that Rabash is describing here, in the importance of the association, they have to be unified in the love of the friend as the self, because that's where men's correction lies. Women have to unify the lack that they feel. They have to identify the correct lack, not the things of this world, but the lack towards spirituality. Women can never really... You ever notice how women can't be happy in this world? It's not because they have some kind of an emotional deal, or as Freud used to say, I don't know what do women want, What they want is they want the light. They want the deepest yearning in them, which is their power. This desire, this malchut power, to receive the light within itself, but in a conscious way, through the connection to Zeranpin, which is that which we can consider the male aspect of the soul as a whole, that male aspect should correct and be the conduit to bring that into the woman, because the woman is essentially the creature. Woman's the creature. And it is really the woman that undergoes the correction. The means by which the correction occurs, I mean, the creature undergoes the correction, because everything compared to the Creator and the creative force of bestowal, everything, including men, is all feminine. So the unity, when we get down to the level of concealment in which men and women appear as physical beings, these two aspects of the soul appear as completely separated in this world. This is where the correction of the creature occurs through the correct relationship of the two towards a correct unity. The uniting of the lack of all the women working towards the goal provides a tremendous potential. It's like that concept of aviut, that it provides the expansion of the ego, but not towards. It should not be towards the fulfilling of the feminine egoistic desires, but towards the fulfilling of the whole in the way that the feminine turns this quality of malchut into a quality of bestowal, enabling those, which you can call them the men, enabling them to become corrected and to provide, to bestow to the woman, so that the woman receives in order to bestow, which is actually her act in the correction of the men. She actually corrects what is above her through this act. It's complicated to explain, but it involves two types of work in unity. They're different, but they're totally complementary. Let me go on. I can see the questions are building here, but let's keep using Rabash's words, okay? So he says, if we start dividing into proportions, then we can certainly not call the partnership equal. Why is he even addressing this? He's saying that in order to really receive the arvut here, and he's putting it in very simple terms, we have to see each other as equals. What does that mean? Not somebody greater, not somebody less, and so on. Because it has to do with the nullification of our own egoistic concept and desire in the connection with the other, because in that is where the Creator is revealed. So he continues. In contrast, equality, not the external equality, the internal equality in my attitude towards the friend, towards the woman, towards the man, towards the group. In contrast, equality is necessary in order to form a group based on brotherly love. In other words, that the whole concept shall be towards unity. The unity among the members is the result of their equality. Can a group which divides its profits unequally be termed unified? It's clear that any material profit which results from an association based on brotherly love will be divided equally without concealment or smuggling from each other. Everything must be done in the spirit of love, friendliness, and peace. Rosa from Mexico is asking, what happens with single women? Do they have the same degree in Kabbalah? Yes. A woman does not need to be married in order for her to correct herself and to attain in Kabbalah. A woman activates the entire system. She is related to the entire system. And a woman has many fewer corrections to do than a man, because a woman already plays single woman, divorced woman, widowed woman, single mother, plays precisely the same role, and already plays to a certain degree unconsciously, enacts the same role in physicality, not completely, but to a certain degree, that she does in spirituality, which is that expanding force that allows the light to come down and complete the thought of creation, that is, to fill the kli. It is the force of the creature. A man does not yet enact the role that is in his root. A man does not bestow. And a man needs marriage in order to align that and to understand, to be forced, in a sense, to see that unity as a real thing, to be bound up with the necessity to serve the woman, serve her. Relate to her, love her, see her as an equal, certainly, but to serve her. And the fact of the connection of the man to the woman actually triggers in him and guides him towards this bestowal. Now, it can just happen on a physical level, and you see that marriages are breaking down and so on because it's if a man and a woman are not undergoing, they're not entering this relationship, especially a man, for the purpose of some higher goal, which is the attainment of the qualities of the Creator, then there's no reason to stay there. When the woman demands of the man, as she must do by nature, then all that happens is that her and his ego expand to such a degree that they begin to hate each other. So this is an incorrect relationship between men and women, and that is also the way that the creature as a whole deals in its relationship to the light. So you can see that if you have a man in a marriage with a woman that is relating to the correct force of the desire to draw the light, and if he is also involved in the correction of his, in Torah and mitzvot, then all those things are aligned, and he benefits, and he's a complete being. But a woman does not actually require that. She can relate to the entire. She can relate directly to the Rav. She can relate simply to the goal, or she can relate to the group as a whole. Maria Elena from Mexico, if the husband doesn't study Kabbalah, can we make the association? Again, that is really the same answer. Yes, of course you can. Nancy from New York, about the text. What you read means that we can't feel equal to a teacher in terms of friendship? That's correct. You can't, it's impossible to learn from somebody that you feel is your equal. A teacher is somebody that you relate to in such a way that you put yourself in a position. You actually make yourself a Rav. You have to invest something into that book or into that situation or into that person for the time in which you will be able to receive something, because it has to flow from above downward to you, and it requires an openness on the part of the person. But here he's speaking about how we actually can, the practicality of working in a group and how our Vut works, and he's putting it in simple terms. So he refers to Matan Torah, which we looked at, right? The reception of the Torah. It says, however, it says, two conditions pertain to the attainment of spiritual elevation. One, to be open continuously to criticism from those around him. And two, he must be among many people. The glory of the king is in the great assembly. To fulfill the first condition, one must see himself. Listen closely to this. To fulfill the first condition, one must see himself, themselves, as the least of the association. Then he will be able to accept the criticism. The great cannot accept criticism from the small. A fortiori, or therefore, the great cannot be inspired by the words of the small. Only the small are inspired by the criticism of the great. To fulfill the second condition, one must honor his fellow associates as though he were the sage of the generation. Then the surmounting society will affect him as though it were a vast assemblage, because quality outweighs quantity. So what are the things that he told us here? To be open continuously to criticism from those around him. Now that doesn't mean that one person goes to another and says, shape up, buddy. You're not doing it. It's not that. It's that when we work with our friends, we see where we are in relation to the Creator. This criticism is a natural outcome of working against the will to receive, of its, not being involved in self-love, and working towards seeing the other as an equal, and working with the person with that constant intention. When we do that, it shows us where we are in relation to the Creator, because that's the Creator's quality. That's how the Creator functions. The Creator works like the law of nature, which is the complete and utter support of the whole with no thought for the self. That's the same thing as seeing the equality of importance to your friend's need, desire, and so on. So it's a natural criticism that just comes from the association. It comes from working in a group. And then the second thing he tells us is that to be among many people, the glory of the king is in the great assembly. And he tells us that we have to see the friend. These friends that are gathered together here, virtually everywhere, the ones that you see and the ones that you don't see, the force of the group behind anybody who's, sits here and tries to pass on what Rav has taught us. It's all of that. Your friend who you speak to on the forum, they are the sages of this generation. And that's not lip service. That's true. That's really true. Because those who are seeking to actually correct themselves for the sake of others are the only ones that you can term wise. We saw an election yesterday, a very emotional victory speech with very beautiful words, and a lot of unity of people's desire there. There's a lot of excitement, and the words sounded right. And we can only hope that what's in everybody's heart there can actually be what occurs from this. But it's not up to an individual, and it's not even up to an unawakened nation yet. It's up to the sages of the generation to give that force in our desire to connect to the whole world, so that what we're seeing there won't be an empty and external thing, but that we will help create those opportunities for the world to be able to be unified, so that it can undergo the kind of change that it must undergo. That is the job of a sage, and the people who relate to this and want to work on it together. It's no exaggeration to look at them that way. And if we do that, then it's possible to understand the great force that we receive from the other friends who want this above everything else. And to understand the great force that we give them by connecting with the light that is in this article, not just, and in all of the things that we're studying. I mean, what's in these articles? It's nothing but pure love, stated in such a way that you can sort of eliminate all the nonsense within you and start to feel it. And not just that we relate to it through our feelings, or that I'm going to become ascended in some way, but there's a quality in these people that are gathered here that wants to not just know about it, but to do it. Really, seriously do it. Cheryl from New Jersey, I read that women are exempt from the study of 10 Sephirot. Are we going to be denied the privilege of studying it? And is there ever going to be an English version of the textbooks? It's not correct. Women are not denied studying tests. You can watch the lessons. You can. There's a certain number of chapters are already translated into English, and if you ask about it on the forum, I'll give you a link to it. You can follow along in the lessons, in the middle lesson and the morning lesson. Not now, because you're not prepared for it, and nobody is right in this group. But there's nothing that says that a woman cannot learn that. It's just that a woman does not benefit. She doesn't correct herself by doing it. But there's no reason for her not to do it if she wants to do it. Her corrections lie in a different area. But she's not prohibited from doing it. Malaj from Mexico. I'm sorry, I'm not going to pronounce these names correctly. How could this be possible if most of the people don't have an idea what friendship, unity, and love are? People only know about their own interests. But they don't need to know it. It's not their responsibility, it's our responsibility. The people who are awakened, the people who want this, are the ones who are totally and completely responsible for making at least those corrections within this group. Once we do that, once we achieve that unity, it's like the beginning of a nuclear reaction, in the sense that you only have to turn a few of these over and release the energy in a small quanta of humanity, and it makes it easier for everybody else in humanity to begin searching for the same thing and understanding what it is and even desiring it. It is not, he says here, another very important thing about the association. We must see ourselves as the least of the association. That means that the only one who needs to be corrected is me. The only one, not other people who supposedly don't understand. Only you. You know? Only me. That's it. If I do my correction, if I work towards the support of this unity in whatever my role is, whether as a man or a woman, if I work all the time checking myself, where am I with my friends and where am I in relation to to making the love of others eclipse my love for myself, and to use everything that I am to serve them, if I do that on a continual basis, the fact that we are actually only one being, even those who know nothing about this, that interconnection will provide channels that within all of humanity that will allow all of this to happen. And you'll see it will turn over in the wink of an eye, but it depends on me doing my correction, not on anybody else. Everything else outside of the will to receive is already perfect. The creation, the moving on from the halfway point of creation, is completely dependent on you and no one else. The reason of each must help his friend implies an equal relationship, but the reason of each must learn from his friend implies a student-teacher relationship in which a person sees his friend as greater than himself. Absolutely important. Now, when you try to see, as a man, to try to see your friend as greater than yourself, as a woman, to understand that the support has to be, that your power has to go towards the part that's broken, not towards yourself. And you have to see that as more important than your own needs, your own egoistic needs, not your own physical necessities. We're responsible for making sure that everybody has their physical necessities. But the work, the spiritual work, is that we have the concern that nobody else will have to worry about their egoism, that we've got their back covered as far as their fears about their ability to attain. And we need to check constantly that we see the other not only as an equal but as greater. Why? So that we can receive the light from them. We have to see, listen carefully, we must see the friend or the other within the group, not in the world in general, as greater than ourselves. Otherwise, it is impossible for us to receive the light. questions. Simone from Australia. So we all need to be in Arvut, men and women. The Arvut involves, how do I put this? Just on a technical basis, we don't say the Arvut has got to do with the guarantee between the men. But the Arvut happens within, they were surrounded by the women. The Arvut happens within that. So in the greater structure, have you seen that picture of, it was from the Congress in February in Israel. There is a heart, like 3,000 people making up a heart. Inside the center of the heart, there were all the men that were at the Congress. And then outside of it, there was a border of women surrounding the men. The outer, that outer layer that enabled the bonding on the inside. That's a physical sort of graphic expression of how the Arvut works and the difference between the two corrections. So yes, male and female must be involved in this unity because we are one being divided into these two forces of reception and bestowal. Bestowal is called zachar, male, and meaning male, and reception is nukva, or the feminine, or you can, and the correct relationship between the two of them is called mating. And we change as we grow, both individually and as a group. We continually cycle through states and levels, parzufim and sephirot, which we continually go. We flip from masculine to feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. We're not separate. We're one, and these are the states on which we rise. Delia, the feminine energy that is present in every human being is what we should work creatively. Why was the woman annulled for such a long time if we're all equal to the Creator? The feminine energy that is present in every human being, well, it's not an energy, but it's an aspect. It's what we should work with creatively? No, you have to work with both. A woman has to work with her corrections and where her work and power is in the work, and a man has to work where his is. And why women were subjugated is because in the past is because we were unable to do our corrections, and what was for a very long time we were separated from each other. We treated each other in a completely egoistic way. And now it is possible for us to make this correction as a collective and as a whole. The time in our development, we weren't ready. We didn't need it. We didn't want it. We were satisfied. It seemed to us that somehow, even with all of this egoism, that it was okay and that things would develop in such a way. And okay, women are miserable, but who knows? And maybe something will happen. And we all lived like we could develop our egos and somehow bring happiness. But I think for women it was always clear that nothing would ever come of anything in this world until the men correct themselves. Patty from Massachusetts wants to know, can you explain how women correct themselves, what we need to do? Women, well, first of all, please read the book, Women and Kabbalah, which is, you'll find a link for it on the forum, because this is all questions and answers from Rav, questions from women to Rav and his answers. Women work on their correction by working in dissemination in the same way that men do. They work by uniting, women join together by uniting their lack, their desire for the light, and in support of the goal in general. And they influence the men in their intention, that the men do what they're supposed to do, and that this connection is made, and that the light can flow. It's a constant, instead of using their power, which on the physical level comes across as the ability to control men through sexuality, through their beauty and sexuality, as it is felt by men. It's tremendous power over men. And any smart woman knows that she can twist a man around her finger if she understands him and understands how to use that. So here, in physicality, that power is used to satisfy physical needs and desires and so on. You know, power, or be associated with a powerful man. Ah, yeah, great. Yeah, thank you. And, or to have a beautiful house, or whatever. These kinds of things. So now what the woman has to do is to correct the use of this, amongst other things, but this is an easier one to see. To use it as an intentional power, she actually has to push the men. Not with her words, not the way we do it now. Would you please, for heaven's sakes, take out the garbage? It has been sitting there for 3 weeks. Because the guy won't do anything unless he receives the force from the woman. You know, he'll sit there. Even a very motivated man, he will still sit there in some way without that force from the woman. Why? Because a man and a woman are one being. And he doesn't have that in him, and she lacks a certain thing in her, which was divided by the breaking of the vessels. And so this needs to be joined together through a quiet, I mean, not a spoken thing, through an intention, a development of love in which the whole male aspect is seen as the way that you would love a child. But loving this aspect is not like loving a child. Loving a child is an egoistic, natural thing. It overtakes you, and even as a man, I felt it when I saw my daughter for the first time. I was the first one to hold her. The moment after she was born, I picked her up, and I could not believe what happened inside of me. A completely new person appeared inside of me, and I was so locked to this child with wanting to give it everything. And you know, and this is a man. In a woman, I can't even imagine what that is, but it's instilled in us naturally, right? This love of a child. Well, this thing, which is about the closest thing that you can get to bestowal in the world, and it's still not bestowal because we get personal pleasure out of it. The woman gets personal pleasure out of it. These two things, this kind of maternal force, which is like Ima, this is a spiritual force. It's Bina, actually. This has to be turned towards the whole of humanity in relation to that uncorrected part of the woman, which is the man. So that's the work, and it comes out in the work that a woman does in dissemination. We have women working together with men in managing certain things at BB and so on, and they're in sort of every aspect of what we do in circulation. And a woman is constantly working on the uniting of that with that lack in other women that she works together, and providing an enormous force, an engine that enables the unity to occur. This is that picture that I was telling you about. Isn't this gorgeous? Look at this. These are the men that were at the Congress in the shape of a heart. Here, with this little lifesaver around his neck, since the theme of the Congress was that we were all in one boat. The Arvut. You know that story, Bala Salam says there's two guys in a boat, and one of them starts drilling a hole, and the other one says, "Fool, what are you doing?" And the guy drilling the hole says, "What is that your business? I'm only drilling a hole under me." And the first man says, "We're both going to drown. We're in one boat." So that was the theme of the Congress. Let's go back to the picture. And so that's why this life jacket is around Rav. That's him there. And around the outside here, these are the women. These are the women of B'nai Baruch. The women Kabbalists. And what was very interesting was after this picture, they put a huge gantry, like a big sort of thing that they could shoot down with the camera. And Rav told the women, when the picture is over, don't let the men out. So what happened was, okay, he said, fine, we have a shot. And then the men all started going, oh, I'm going to smoke, I'm going to do whatever. But the women would not let go of their hands. They kept the men inside that circle. And it was really very interesting and fun sort of exercise, object lesson on the roles, you know, on where the corrections lie. So, let's see, where are we? Jasmine from Pennsylvania. As a teacher, do you see light from one to another on the forum, or is it still egoism? I see development, a lot of development. But you got to understand that it's, you know, you could say as a teacher and you're talking about light and so on, but really what it is, let's say you're going to climb a mountain and you hire a guide. Can the guide see the future, or is he supernatural? No, he's just been through that path. So he knows several times, so he knows what's ahead and what it means when a person is at a certain place and says, do we go here or do we go there? They know, yeah, you go there, because they've been there before. So it's really, as instructors, what we see is the questions that people ask, and the question reveals very much what a person wants. It's just simple. So, and this, all of this is really a process of elimination, because we have to unlearn a lot of things before we begin to really see where we need to work. That's most of the work. And you'll see that sometimes we'll ignore a question or we'll push somebody, because if they're having a problem, we will deepen the problem. You know, we'll poke them right where the problem is, so that a person can make a decision on their own. They can see something. They can, if it only bothers a person a little, they're not going to, you know, it's not going to be important enough. They're not going to have a need. So we can see that there people are developing, because they're being pushed by certain things, and I don't mean by us, even though I know, you know, you think I'm a tough son of a gun. But it's not, I'm not doing it to give you a hard time. Nature does this to us. What we have to do is to learn how to, that is the process, and to be able on our own to speed this up. I see people cutting away a path through the nonsense in their heads and actually seeing the goal. I see people being pushed back by nature. I see them confronting it, despairing correctly, becoming confused correctly, and hopeless, which is very good, and then still returning to the work. So that's what we call light. And also there are people who you know, sometimes want clarification on experiences they're having. And experiences are natural, and they're part of the process. Don't be surprised. There's all kinds of states, unbelievable states that happen, and they aren't spirituality, but they are things that we have to go through to understand where we are, and to burn off things that we think of as spiritual, until we can identify really that it's all about my attitude towards the other and nothing else, nothing else. I see tremendous progress. I guess that's the question that you're asking. Mayan from Guatemala, when I look at the questions, I have the temptation to feel inferior or superior. What can I do to overcome and correct this feeling? Just notice that. What happens when the goal becomes very important to us is that we start to feel bad about that. We start to hate that in ourselves. We stop hating the other person, saying, oh, that person's smarter than me. I don't want to deal with them. Or that person is stupid and I don't want to waste my time with them. Instead of feeling that, what happens is we feel the difference between how we actually feel and the goal. And we need that. And that makes us hate our will to receive and be uncomfortable with it, and that need attracts the light. And that light lifts us up. What you should do just is remind yourself that you should see the other as completely corrected, and only me, meaning man, you should only see yourself as the one who has to be corrected. And that fault that you see in the other is actually a fault in our love and connection to other people. That's it. So that will evoke that feeling in you that will move you more and more towards the light. Jill from Tampa, are we too new to participate in dissemination? No, not at all. And at the Congress, we're going to have a kind of a dissemination fair, you know, like on a big floor. We'll have booths and stuff where everybody can see what it is that we do, because B'nai Baruch is a doing organization, you know, and you can see what things we work together on, and you can ask about how we work together on it and so on. If you want to work on it, you can begin working on it. Dissemination has to do only with your desire to get into the whole process of correction and be able to measure yourself and see where you are really against the Creator by seeing where you are with your friend. Maria from Mexico, how can my ego grow without damaging the group? Outside of the group, when your ego grows, it damages yourself and everybody. Inside the group, when your ego grows, that's good, because it means that you now have a place to perform a correction, or a mitzvah. And your ego must expand. You see, it doesn't matter about a person's character and those sorts of things. We don't pay attention to that. Whatever we see in our friend is being sent for us, and that applies to everybody. It's actually sent for our correction. So it must expand. Let's go back to Rabash's words so we don't get too lost here. There are two ways to understand this. Oh, let's see. How can one, this is exactly your question, okay? But how can one consider his friend greater than himself when he sees he has greater virtues than his friend, more talented, better character, etc.? And don't we feel that? There are two ways to understand this. One, since he has chosen this person as a friend already, let him view the relationship in a way above the intellect. Two, and this is more natural intellectually, since he has already chosen the other as a friend, let him follow the ways of brotherly love. Let him concentrate on his friend's good points and ignore the negative points, real though they may be. Scripture states, love will overcome all crimes. We see that it is the nature of a person to see the bad in his neighbor's children and the good in his own. If someone will mention a flaw in his children, he will become immediately defensive on their behalf. It may be asked about this. Well, what is the reality? That the children are indeed virtuous, and his wrath is just wrath against their unjust detractors, or not? This is how I heard it from my father, Rav Ashlag, of blessed memory. In truth, every man has pluses and minuses. Both the neighbor and the father speak the truth, but the neighbor doesn't speak from the perspective of the father to a son. He doesn't have that kind of love for the child. Therefore, he sees only the son's minuses. This fits his purposes better. He can show that his own children are better. This is the truth of what he sees. But what does he see? Only things which suit him. The father also sees the truth, but only the good side of it, not the bad. To see the bad gives him no pleasure. He sees only those aspects from which it is possible to derive pleasure, the virtues in his children. So, he's saying there's two ways to deal with this. You're in a group, and you know, number one, you know that everybody here is in it for exactly the same reason. And therefore, what would be the purpose of judging their externality? We should be dealing with that force of desire, uniting, seeing that in the other person. And the externals are irrelevant. bad character, smelly, misshapen, whatever horrible judgments we place on a person, no matter how true or false they may be. The only thing that this is not an association of people. This is an association of a desire to exit self-love, to bond with the Creator. That's what's coming together. These separated, shattered desires that came from the breaking of the vessels, the shattering of the screen, and what we're here to do is to unite them. And so we're not dealing with the externality of the person. We've already chosen them, right? And so in the second half, he says, overlook the crimes. Apply your love by the fact that this person has already declared that they are a friend to you. They want to work with you. They love you. This is not the same as going to, your office or your work or your daycare or wherever you work. This is different. Everybody here is saying, I'm here to fall in love with you on the deepest possible level and carry you with this force to your fulfillment. So, given that, should we not overlook the shell, the cover on the person, and connect with that force? Susan from Toronto, could you explain the difference in the term friend as related to men and women? Is it that men relate to their friend as a means to achieve a state called arvut, and that women certainly can and do have friends, but not a specific state we achieve? That's correct. Men are broken. The connection to the friend called arvut is the repair of that. When the men achieve that, they enter a state of wholeness called arvut. The friend for a woman is like somebody you get along with, an associate, and so on. The friend for the woman is actually the whole. So women relate to each other as friends in a different way. You don't need to pressure that part. You don't need to look at a woman and try to achieve a bonding with the woman. It's impossible. You're not built to do that because there's no purpose in that for you. This is not a negative. The spiritual function is as an individual power of the desire for the light to go through the men in the form of arvut. If you give that up, you're not actually serving anything. So the woman fulfills that spiritual force. That individuality in a woman, that desire in a woman, that's good. It's perfect. It's not broken. In men, it's broken. It shouldn't be like that in men. In women, it serves the whole of creation. So, friend means a different thing. I join with you in an agreement to work with my desire towards, and your desire towards the goal, by combining the lack, not by seeing you as me. I'm not supposed to see you as me. I'm supposed to work for the whole and care for the whole in a love like the love of Bina for everything below it. It's subtle, it's hard to explain, but as you begin working in this, you will begin to define it for yourself. And you'll see, actually, that no matter how much we may want to be completely egalitarian according to our political predisposition, that we've been trained this way from childhood to look at things this way. In working towards the goal, the more advanced students make a decision on their own to work correctly, that the men make a decision eventually that they must work with the men, and the women make a decision also that they can't work with the men in that way, that the study, after a certain point where we get the basics and we go through a certain period of study, the real spiritual work, what we can call the Kabbalistic work towards the spiritual, requires that the women combine their force in a way that doesn't The men don't bother the women, and the women don't bother the men in terms of their the correct use of their power and force. It's something that people choose to do. It's not something that's imposed. It happens, and we've seen it in the development of physical groups all over the world. They simply come to a point where they go, this isn't working. And then they naturally take on roles that give power to the whole group. But don't be confused and think, as some people have said on the forum, because they're not really understanding what's written in that booklet yet, that somehow there's some kind of physical separation and that women aren't allowed or any of these kinds of things. That isn't so. It's just that things become organized according to their most efficient and powerful relationship. He finishes, then he will see only the good in his friend. So, Pablo from Atlanta, the need for unity to make corrections is because, in fact, I am the only one there. It is because yes, there's only one there, and that's the whole. As long as I hold on to this idea of that there is a separate me from here, from the rest, then the whole cannot be corrected. It waits upon each and every single part of it to reconnect to the whole. Because that's when it's corrected. If any individual part holds out, then the whole suffers. So it's on the shoulder of the individual to make that correction. Juan Pablo from Colombia, could you explain the difference between beloved I am presence and the Creator? Beloved I am presence and Creator. I don't know what beloved I am presence is. I'm sorry. I don't know that term. Paloma from Mexico, what do you advise us to do in our daily work to make sure we are on the right path? Connect to the group. We're not talking about your daily life here. In your daily life, you simply need to recognize that everything that nature does with you, it is doing in order to get you to make this correction, so that you can accept the pleasure and the good that the Creator wants to give you. But you can't do it in your daily life first. You have to do it in relation to others who are trying to do it at the same time. It must be done in relation to the group. Marissa from Venezuela, could you please explain why women do not need to know about the 10 Sephirot? I didn't say they don't need to know. They should know basically about the 10 Sephirot, and you're learning that now. What you're studying with Mike, the introduction, which is what Pticha means. It means the introduction to the Book of Zohar, one of the introductions. It is really dealing with what Talmud Eser Sephirot teaches in extreme detail, and women should know this. Because basically, you're not really going to understand or accept or feel within you these explanations about the different roles within the single soul called male and female until you begin to understand within yourself that structure of the 10 Sephirot. What Zeranpin and Nukva of Ein Sof, which is the place in which this division between male and female, the root of that, where it comes from, and how it functions. If you don't know that, you won't understand why that is a law of nature. So you do need to learn these things. What I said was that, and what the Kabbalists tell us, is that if a woman can study it and know it intellectually, but the studying of it does not correct her, her correction works in a different place, in a far more natural place. It's not an intellectual, technical thing that she must associate to her heart and mind. Men need to do that, but women don't. And also time of study. Men have to keep a particular time and a regimen in order to be able to connect their inner state to these things. Women are not required to do anything, any kind of correction in regards to time, because they have that whole system within them. Women can, even on the physical level, can create life. So women have fewer corrections, and they don't involve the technical study. They are allowed to study. It's just that the benefit is just marginal. It's only intellectual. Jasmine from PA is saying, so an argument with someone else is really an argument with yourself? An argument with somebody else is basically an argument with the Creator. And it's condemning the Creator, basically. It's condemning the system that is there and the environment that you're given only so that you can line yourself up correctly to receive the complete pleasure. Yeah, it is really something that wants to deny you that pleasure within yourself, really. Barbara and Hanan from Eugene, Oregon. Are men more broken because they have only one female gene and one male? No, it's the fact that it's the other way around. The fact that we're structured that way in our root, we see those sorts of things on the branch level in terms of our physical genetics. Our spiritual genetics, I won't go there. That'll be a diversion. But men have more corrections to perform because men were responsible for the screen. And the vessel and the screen shattered. Because the screen shattered, so did the vessel, and so on. And there are many more things on the chain all the way up of all of the worlds, the parts of Fim, Sephiroth, and so on, that men are responsible for correcting. And because it's broken in them, it's not broken in the feminine part. I can't explain that better, but you'll see it in the technical work as you progress. Leslie from New Jersey. Does a man have to correct himself in the first place, and as a result, both men and women come to correction? Men and women are one creature. The male part of the creature must do the correction first, with the assistance of the force of desire from the feminine. And then the whole creature is corrected. So there are two types of correction that happen here. What is the desire, and what is the desire of the woman directed at, and what is the intention behind that desire, which always exists, that emptiness, that lack, that longing, the reason why the woman has the womb, why things have to enter there, and why they emerge from there. It's because that's the construction and the spiritual construction, and the fulfillment has to come there, right? But as a whole, this meeting of these two forces correctly is what produces life on the spiritual level. It's the correction for the whole. Sylvia from New York, is it correct to know that if we have certainty from the light, everything else will come into harmony in life? This is to bestow certainty from the light. Certainty is above reason. Certainty means that one feels connected in such a way that the goal is so great that it's like Rabash says here, we do not look at the externality of events, at all. We look at the internality of events, which is that intention of the Creator towards us. And the only way that we can possibly know that intention is to work constantly with the friends in a group to reveal what our intention is towards them. They are the measurement. That interaction is the measurement that allows us to sense, adjust, move, desire, feel the lack within ourselves. That's when we go through a feminine phase. And the desire for correction, in which the light can be revealed to us, which is when which we go above reason, which is called masculine. Both men and women do this. And this must be done constantly against the friend so that we reveal that inward part of the Creator. You can't reveal it between you and the Creator. You have to reveal it between you and your friend, you and the group. Mayan from Guatemala, how do we balance our corporal needs with the spiritual needs? You do everything that you normally do in your physical life. You take care of your necessities, your family, you work, you live in a house, you do all those things. And then in the time that you have, in the spare time that is which is, you can call luxury or above that necessity, you give that time to the correction of the world. That's the balance. You don't give up one for the other. Kohelet from PA. Along with Jasmine's line of thought, if you see a fault in someone, is it actually in you? Well, of course. We're told to love the friend as the self, not because that would be a nice thing to do, but because they are yourself. So why don't you just love them, instead of messing everything up? Could you explain, Jardin from Colombia, what's the difference between correction and sin? Sin is to receive pleasure and to have an intention only to satisfy myself. That's being sin means to be far away from the quality of the Creator, and correction means to be the same as the quality of the Creator. Betsy from Florida, what did you say about a marriage where the woman is studying Kabbalah and her husband is not? Can this work out? Yes, it can. The woman is not dependent on her husband for her spiritual advancement. It's dependent on her quality of connection to the goal. And if you're talking about am I going to have problems? Well, it depends on how you are in your marriage towards your husband. Do you support him? Do you admire him? Do you use your power correctly to help him in his life, whether or not he's the way that a wife does with a husband and a husband should do with a wife. Don't lord it over him. Don't force him to do anything, and just work with what you can call with your luxury, with your spare time. Work towards your correction, which is the correction of the world. That works out. Just don't antagonize something so that he says, I don't want you doing this, Don't make it hard for yourself. As a preparation for the Congress, I want to now move to the next article, and we're going to read all the way through it. And that is, that's the next one on the page, and it's the need for love of friends, too. Okay, first we'll read all the way through it, and then we'll address some questions on it. One, why have I chosen these friends specifically? 2, why did these friends choose me? 3, isn't it necessary for each and every one to reveal his love for his associates, or is it enough that he feels it in his heart, loving his fellows in private and not revealing the hidden recesses of his heart? Modesty is well known to be a great virtue. Perhaps we should say the opposite, that he must reveal his love of his colleagues to them, for the reason that this revelation will awaken in his friend also a love of the other colleagues of the association. He will become aware of the brotherly love which envelops the whole group. This results in a further amplification of the love within the group due to the inclusion of the whole dynamics of the group love in each individual. In other words, he's saying, if I show through action, through actually working with the others, and in every interaction with my friend, continually work at revealing the fact that I want this friend in the association, that I am working only to love this person and support them, to show them this, then as a result of that, the power of all of those, of each member of the group, he says it becomes amplified to such a state that the whole group receives a force far beyond that force of the individual, and that the love is not dormant. It becomes something active. It really becomes a force that we're engaged in. And he says that this is due to the quality of inter-inclusion, the fact that we are completely interrelated. Right now, what we show to each other is that we keep our cards close to our chests. You know, we don't show. Because we are always looking for the option to leave or to pull some kind of a manipulation, whatever. This is how we work in the world. But in the group, it has to be, not only am I not holding any cards in my hand, but what I have is my heart. And I show you through my work, through my intention, and even in an external way, as you saw in the mini-Congress, we act as if we are corrected, as if we are already in that perfect state of the world of Ein Sof. You know, that we act according to the laws of the highest world. Because in this, there's a game in this in which we kind of practice it. Because as you try to do it, you go through stuff like, oh, I'm being such a phony, I don't really feel it. If you hadn't done that, you'd never feel that. And as a result of feeling it, and because you know everybody else is working on it, then you immediately feel you must find a way that you actually do feel that. So it's a game that leads to a mastery of this. It's a game of a goal-oriented game that leads. It's a simulation of the highest state. And then he says, if he has, say, 10 colleagues, he will have 10 powers included within him, all of whom will contribute to the satisfaction of the need for love of friends. So eventually what happens is a person isn't coming to the others with his own love, which is very small. You know, it doesn't really amount to much. In fact, it doesn't even function. It's not real. You can't do it by yourself. But we come to the friends with the love of the entire group. This is like the love of God, you could say. When it is that shared inter-inclusive love, then it is not the love from within the will to receive. It is the love that comes from exiting that. It's the power of the whole. And that is an unstoppable, immeasurable force of bestowal. That's the Creator. When we come to each other with the force of love of the whole, that is the place in which the Creator is revealed. He says, on the other hand, if the love of friends is left concealed, then that individual will lack the power of the group. It will be very difficult to judge his friend for their merits, and each one will think himself the righteous one, that he's the only one occupied in the love of his fellow, and therefore he will have only a small power to work in love for his friends. Thus, love of friends must be in a revealed form, not concealed in the heart of each. Now, that doesn't mean that we jump up and down and yell love. I love you, I love you, I love you. No, that's not it. It's that in the way in which we act with each other, let's say on the forum, the way that we answer a question. Somebody wants to know an answer. So what do? Do I say, the answer's love? No. What I do is I look carefully, I really consider, what is my friend asking? What are they really looking for? And am I just going to talk off the top of my head with my opinion or something like that? Or am I going to actually serve my friend, go do a search through the material, find that thing for my friend, and share the common light with them? I will show them through my action that I'm willing to do the work for the friend. The love becomes shown. It's a force, not just of I think I love my friend, but no, I may not want to go do this thing, and that's the case. You don't want to do it, but we do it in order to enable that friend to feel the force of love, and that they needn't worry about their own will to receive. They will receive a huge inspiration, and then eventually everybody can enter into that, serving each other as though, like that story with the master and the slave. You give your pillow, your chair, your bed, your work for the fulfillment of their spiritual desire. This is a practical thing you can actually do for your friend. That's how we show it. We show it by preparing. We show it in our intention. And we show our intention, we reveal our intention through the actions that we do for the person's spiritual advancement. That's why when we prepare congresses, believe me, it is not an easy thing to do, and it takes a very long time and a lot of people to do it, and it's hard to organize these things and connect with people in different places in order to do it. And each friend is struggling against their self-love in order to listen to the other friend, to work with him and give him the thing that he needs to in order to fulfill his role in the preparation. It's the only reason we do it. So that when you come to the Congress, you will, first of all, you'll be taken care of, and that's what we want more than anything. So you don't have to worry about any of those sorts of things, and the only thing that will be revealed there will be this love and this unity in the group, and that it'll be recognizable, and you'll be able to work with it too. So you'll see some external expressions. You'll see people, some guys will hug each other. They will be singing together, and you'll see everybody sort of moving towards this, or entertaining each other, or asking questions of Rav, and we'll be studying. And you'll see all of this previously hidden love shown in these actions of serving the other. One must constantly remind himself of the goal of the group. I stopped someplace here. Therefore, he will only have a small power to work in love of friends, and thus love of friends must be revealed in a revealed form and not concealed within the heart of each. But one must constantly remind himself of the goal of the group. Otherwise, the physical body, in other words, the will to receive, will confuse the issues and the goals. The body has its own itinerary, its own self-interest, and it must be remembered that the group exists to come to the love of fellow man, which is the springboard to the love of the Creator. All this benefit, however, occurs only when the person's motivation in being part of the group is that, listen carefully, when the person's motivation in being part of the group is that he will have someone to benefit without compensation of any kind. But his motivation in participating in the group is to receive But if his motivation in participating in the group is to receive all kinds of assistance, gifts, or favors, then the physical body will rejoice. For any such association will be based on self-love, which stimulates the senses of greed and lusts. The body will see its chance of a big profit of increase, and it will see the help of friends as an opportunity for material acquisition. It must be remembered that the association is founded on the love of the other. Each individual must accept upon himself love for the others and hatred of selfishness. And when each sees his friend endeavoring to subdue his selfishness and to enhance love of his fellows, he will be included within the friend's intentions. If the friend has, say, 10 members, then each will have 10 powers with which to subdue egotism and its concomitant hatreds. Otherwise, not only will each be left with only his own single power with which to love his fellows, he does not observe them giving love, as they are all concealing their love, but quite the contrary. The other members of the association will cause him to lose even his own lone power to give brotherly love. He will learn from their concealment of love to conceal love, and he'll fall into self-love. So that's what the group is, and that's what the Congress is about. That's what we work on. It's like it's a kind of an intensive situation, meaning intensive being a short period of time in which the only thing that's happening there is the need for love of friends, and learning how inwardly and outwardly to express this. And this will awaken in us the correct target. And we will understand from that, even if we're just watching all of this go on, through your computer. If you're there, you'll receive a very direct force, and still everybody who watches it, by having this desire, being connected to the group for the reasons that Rabash is explaining here, if you have that, then what light occurs there will become common to the whole group. Patrick from Quebec. If women are not obliged to get married, what would happen if they all decided that they don't need men? I can see that all around me women don't want to marry anymore. They're sick of men. We're in big trouble, aren't we? Oh yeah, we're screwed. Or we're not, but we're not talking about that situation. Women are sick of men because men are sick. Because men are uncorrected. Women are sick too, but they don't know what to do, and neither do men. That's why this methodology is important. When there's nothing in a marriage for a woman, why should she want to do it? And likewise men. When we understand what it is that we're trying to achieve with each other, and that we can't actually achieve anything without each other, then we will continue according to the forms and structures that nature has given us to bring us to fulfillment. But without that, that's what we're going to get, what we see in the world, which is expanding its egoism, but it's not correcting it. Juan from Mexico, and I think I answered that question. Julieta from Mexico. Women are the force that pushes men to search for the light? Yes. Rosa from New Mexico. Oh, you're from the States, from New Mexico? I know that Orthodox Jews don't have women sitting by their side at the synagogue. Is it the same in Kabbalah? It's the same physical action, but it's not for the same reason. And in an Orthodox synagogue, there's a physical separation. There's a thing called a mechitza, and usually you can't even see the women. This is what we do is that we're all in the same room, and we're all we can see each other, but we're not sitting amongst each other because men get really distracted by that. They start thinking about their corporal desires, and everybody everybody gets distracted from the goal. So what we do is we set it up in such a way that the women can work on their corrections and the men can work on their corrections. Lil, from what about gay women? Well, look, nobody's exempt from correction, and it's the inner thing that needs to be corrected, and a person has to work on their reason for their reception. They have to learn to receive in order to bestow. Everybody must make their corrections. If the question is, can a gay woman become corrected? Of course. If she does her inner work, she can. And you just see what changes happen in a person. Everybody must make these corrections. If not now, later, whatever. Mickey from Michigan. This practice of pretending we're already there, does this sort of trick the tricky ego into feeling the intention? Yeah, it does, because the ego says, oh, we're playing a game, okay, who's winning? You know, as long as it's not real, I'm in. Sure, yeah, you're not really going to correct yourself. I'm in. But, you know, it's trickier than that, and it finds a way. Once it learns the rules of the game, then it learns how to trip you up. And that's when you begin to feel, oh, it's not working, because you start doubting and you don't want and all that stuff, and then you have to go above reason. But the game enables you to continually practice exactly this same action. We're going to have to end soon because we have a class that happens right after this. I'll try to do a few more questions. Noe from Bogota. I forgot how to pronounce this. Bogota? I'm sorry. I feel real bad about my economic situation, and this prevents me from sharing with other people. How can I correct this? You mean sharing your money? Don't worry about that. We're not talking about sharing money. Forget it. We're talking about an intention towards other people. Do whatever you can about your financial situation. Don't worry about it. Klaus from Mexico. Why make this difference of gender in Kabbalah, if Kabbalah speaks of spiritual worlds? Wouldn't it be better to think that we are souls in the process of evolution? We're not making a difference between gender in Kabbalah. Nature, do you not see women? I mean, in your world there aren't any women? Do you think that they appeared out of, because there is no such thing in an upper force that creates such a thing? This is a branch of a root. Such forces exist in nature. These are the forces of bestowal and reception. And these are what are under correction. This is what needs to be unified. We're not making this distinction. It's not a philosophy. It's science. Nature made it this way. We have to learn how to use this system in a correct way so that it becomes unified. There's no point in saying something is some way when it isn't that way. You know, you can say that about beliefs, Klaus, but you can't say it about science. You have to deal with what's there. Uchi from Chile. So women's intentions towards men must be those that are correct. Yes, towards all of humanity. I'm sorry, but the question is put in a way that I don't quite understand it. Clara from Bogota. See, I do know how to pronounce it. Who is really our neighbor? All the people who do not know about light, all those who study Kabbalah? Those who study Kabbalah are considered the neighbor. We're talking about the group. Later on, the world is our neighbor. First, we have to attain it with the group. And I guess the next time I see you, some of you, will be at the St. Louis Congress, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting you, shaking your hand, giving you a hug, and eating with you, singing with you, speaking with you. You are the greatest of the generation. You are the sages of the generation, and together we have a great, very important work to do, because we can see what's happening to the world right now. The world can no longer progress by means of the expansion of the ego without correcting it. That's the root of the crises, and it's already happening. The transition of humanity to a true United State, rather than the United States, is happening, and we are the ones responsible for allowing it to happen in a correct way in which the rest of the world will not suffer. And I'm honored to be with you and with all of these desires towards that. And for those of you who aren't coming, we know that you will be watching and you'll be connecting with all of us, and we will feel you and we will think of you there. And I'll see you again after the Congress. Don't forget, there is a lesson with Mike this Sunday. We love you, and see you then.